Hello everyone, welcome to this week's video, and if you're here for my takes on professional wrestling, you're sadly not going to get a whole lot of that in this video. This video is going to be focused predominantly on Godzilla because the last few days in particular, there have been a lot of news headlines centered around Godzilla, the king of the monsters. He has just been everywhere the last few days, including a new movie, which I saw and I want to talk about, the trailer for his next movie, and some other goodies sprinkled in throughout. So there's a lot of Godzilla talk in this video. So if you want my takes on professional wrestling, there's not going to be a lot this week, but I am going to front load the video with the wrestling talk so you get that right away, and then you can dip whenever you feel like it. So there will be talk about CM Punk. Also, I want to talk a little teeny tiny bit about He-Man and the new season of the Netflix He-Man show and all of my thoughts on that. So that is what you were in store for today. So with all that said, let's get started. Professional wrestling, I guess the only major thing to really talk about is CM Punk. He basically had an entire episode of Raw dedicated to him as he gave his return promo, and I want to give my thoughts on that. Again, not a whole lot else going on that I'm really excited about. I guess I could talk about the WrestleMania card, which really seems to be taking shape early, which I appreciate that for sure. But I think I'll save that for a later video. We do have Edge versus Christian this week on AEW, which feels like a big deal. One of the few times where AEW is promoted like a big dream match, type of situation. This actually feels like a TV match that is kind of can't miss, and it's in large part because Christian has been so great as a heel persona that I've actually enjoyed him, and these two do have a history, and it feels like a big deal, and so this feels like a match that I want to go out of my way to see, which is rare in this day and age, and AEW over-promotes things so much that a lot of times these matches don't feel special, even though no matter how much they say it is, but this one actually kind of does, so I want to check it out. But really I want to talk about CM Punk and the promo from last week's episode of Raw, which I waited the entire episode of Raw to see, and then I saw it, and it was a big fat load of nothing. And look, I'm not going to spell doom and gloom here and say that Punk's entire run in WWE is ruined. I don't want to say any of that. I'm not trying to say that, it's a failed experiment, everything's done, we're dead, it's not going to work. Christian is one of my favorite things in AEW right now, and when he debuted, I groaned. So it tells you it's like, it is possible to correct the ship. My big problem with this promo in this segment is that, and I kind of talked about it when he made his return on Collision earlier this year. It's crazy. Punk's had a wild ride this year, but when he returned on Collision, which admittedly was a very passionate, fiery promo, but I was like, okay, where's the hook? What's the direction? What's the story direction? Where's he going? What's he doing? And we didn't really get answers to that question right away, and then he left AEW, and we'll never figure out, what they were going to do with him. But in any case, here I was looking for some kind of like a character direction or what his first match was going to be, and we didn't really get that. He just kind of said, hey, I'm back, bye, hey, I'm back, AJ says hi, bye, and that was it. And I'm like, I feel like we kind of got that at Survivor Series. I was kind of hoping for something with a little bit meat on the bones, and I didn't expect him to come out and just completely bury AEW and Tony Khan and just shoot like crazy. I didn't expect any of that, and the news broke that he'd signed an NDA, so he couldn't have even done that if he wanted to. And I would imagine that was the case. I wasn't looking for that. I was looking for something like, okay, who's he going to target? What's he going to do? Like, what's the direction with CM Punk's character? We don't know. And we still don't know. And I was hoping for some kind of piece of intrigue or story direction, and we didn't really get that. And he said a lot without really saying anything. The only line that really stuck was the, I'm not here to make friends, I'm here to make money line, but other than that, there wasn't really a whole lot going on there, and they could have a plan, or maybe they didn't have a plan yet, I don't know. Who's to say? But again, I'm not trying to spell doom and gloom here and say that Punk's run is a disaster already. I'm just saying that segment was disappointing because he just didn't really say anything, and I was kind of hoping for something. What I was thinking, I was hoping he would come out and say, oh, you're glad I'm back? Oh, you're all welcoming me back and everything, that's great. And then he just turns on everybody and goes, well, guess what, MFers? You can't say MFers, but guess what? The fox is back in the hen house, and I'm going to destroy this company from the inside. And Seth, I'm coming for you and your belt. And just say a bunch of things to get under people's skin and paint himself as like this abrasive, the things that got Punk over and made him such a star in the first place. Make him abrasive, make him crazy, and have him put a target on somebody while also putting a target on his back from everybody else, and create some intrigue and some fire and some conflict with people on the roster, and that's kind of what I was hoping for, and we didn't really get anything like that. Again, he went out there and talked a lot without really saying anything, and actually I think back to when Jericho made his return in, 2012, 2013, and he came out, said nothing, and just smiled and thanked the fans, and he did that for a couple of weeks before eventually saying, "The world will change as you know it." I'm like, that was great, because that built intrigue into what he was doing and what was going to happen. And then, of course, he lost the Royal Rumble, which is like, fine, whatever. But yeah, I'm not going to say that Punk's run is dead or anything like that. I was just disappointed in the segment. I was hoping for a lot more. And I wanted, before I said that and said I was disappointed with what we got and that I wanted a lot more, I wanted to explain what it is I was looking for and what I wanted. So Punk's run, I mean, it's still interesting to have him back, and I want to see what he's doing and what's ultimately going to happen with him. Excuse me. But time will tell, and hey, we've got another episode of Raw happening tonight, so we shall see. We're heading into the Royal Rumble, which is going to be very exciting because WrestleMania season's going to kick off. It's WrestleMania 40, and like I said, the card seems to be taking shape. I'll cover that in probably next week's video. We'll see. But again, it's very exciting and very interesting. I just wish Punk's run got off to a more exciting start, but maybe I'm just being nitpicky. And now it's time to talk some Godzilla, and let me get the big one right out of the way. I saw Godzilla -1. I was able to attend a screening on Saturday here in Frederick, Maryland. And I have a lot to say about this movie, and as you know, if anybody who knows me, I'm a lifelong Godzilla fan. I'm a self-published author on the subject of Godzilla, so it's something that means a lot to me. It's a character that means a lot to me, and I have very strong opinions about any Godzilla movie that comes out, positive or negative. It's a series that I adore, I love, about a character that I adore and love. So there was no way I wasn't going to see Godzilla -1. I was absolutely something I planned on doing, but when they first announced they were doing this movie, I was kind of like, oh, cool, a Godzilla movie. I'm always going to attend a Godzilla movie. That's great, awesome. But I didn't really think too much of it because a lot of the project was kind of kept under wraps, so we didn't really know what we were going to get. I heard that it was going to take place in the 1940s, and I'm like, immediately post World War II Japan, and I'm like, okay, that's an interesting take. Okay, cool. And, but again, they kind of kept a lot of it under wraps, so I didn't really know what to expect or what we were getting, and part of me kind of thought, it's like, are they just doing Shin Godzilla again? Or Shin Godzilla in the 40s? I don't know. It's like, I would have rather just gotten a Shin Godzilla sequel if that's the case, but, then some of the early reactions started coming out, and the first one I saw was from Gareth Edwards, the director of the 2014 Godzilla film. And he said something to the extent of, I am jealous of this movie. This is a masterpiece and arguably the greatest Godzilla movie ever made. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's cool. One filmmaker praising another. I think that's really great. Gareth Edwards, I enjoyed his Godzilla movie. As anybody who was following my channel back then when it first came out knows that I enjoyed that movie. And I like his work. I think Rogue One is by far the best of the Disney Star Wars movies. It's not even close. It's the only one that I'm willing to rewatch these days. And I wanted to see his new movie, The Creator. I didn't get around to doing that. Hopefully I can see it when it gets on streaming and things like that. But, to hear him, give that level of praise to this Godzilla movie, I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Okay, and then the early reactions started filing in. It's like, this is one of the best Godzilla movies ever made. This is the greatest Godzilla movie ever made. And I'm like, what the heck is this movie? I kind of built up my anticipation even more, and I'm like, there's some heavy praise going for this movie, and I've got to see it. So I went to go see it with my sister because we have a long-standing tradition. She loves Spider-Man. I love Godzilla, so whenever there's a new Spider-Man movie, I go with her to go see that. I went to go see Spider-Verse 2 earlier this year, really enjoyed it. Both Spider-Verse movies I thought were very good. I think I like the first one better, but that's neither here nor there. And she comes with me to every Godzilla movie, so we went to go see -1. Theater was empty. and when I say the theater was empty, I mean the entire building was empty. I mean, there was no one in line at the box office. There was no one in line at the snack bar. I think I saw 10 people in the whole bit. I think I saw in the entire time I was there, I think I saw 10 members of the movie-going public, you know, with tickets moving around the building at any point. And it was like, man, this place looks deserted. It's a Regal theater that was in a pretty hot spot here in Frederick. Like, that was always like the go-to place for movies, and it's like, man, Regal must be hurting because nobody cares anymore. And when we walked into our theater for Godzilla, it was us and 2 other people in the entire theater. And I've talked to some people who said, it's like, oh yeah, I went, it was a loaded theater, and -1 did really well. For a limited release foreign film, did really well here in the States. I heard it was the #1 Japanese film of all time in America. And I'm like, okay, that's great. That's great to hear. Good to see Godzilla getting some love. But that was not my experience. We went in, the theater was almost completely empty. And in my entire life, I've had 2 experiences where I walked in to a movie, and I was the only person in the theater. Thor 1... Believe it or not, an MCU film, I walked in there, and MCU, well, before the MCU became like the peak of entertainment, this was still the building blocks phase, but it was still kind of surprising that an MCU film, I walked in there and I was the only one in the theater. And the other time was G.I. Joe Retaliation, which that one was less surprising, but still, certainly happened. Wasn't quite an empty theater this time, but it was close to it. It was just weird to be sitting there in a completely empty theater, almost completely empty theater. But anyway, we watched the movie, and I absolutely loved it. And I'm trying to, like, you know, there are certain things that you just get biased about. Like, if you ask me what the greatest Super Bowl of all time is, I'm going to tell you Super Bowl 42. Yes, I'm a Giants fan. Yes, it carries a lot of bias with it. And I fully acknowledge that bias. But I'm still going to say Super Bowl 42 is the greatest Super Bowl of all time. This case, you know, I'm going to say Godzilla -1 has got to be the film of the year, right? Like, it's got to be. There's nothing else. I can't think of anything else. I've heard Oppenheimer is good. I haven't seen it. But I haven't heard a lot of praise. Maybe Dune 2 will be really good. I don't know. I wasn't in love with the first one like a lot of people were. I thought it was fine, but I wasn't in love with it. Personally, I think the original Dune is a lot more interesting to look at least. That's my opinion. I like the practical effects and everything, but, you know, that's neither here nor there. But nothing else. I don't feel like anything else has gotten the level of praise that when you're thinking, like, Film of the Year or, like, even Academy Award, like, you start thinking of those Best Picture nominations, it's like, it's been a pretty barren year. And, like, is this the year Godzilla gets a Best Picture nomination from the Academy? I don't know, because I haven't heard of anything else getting the level of praise that would warrant a Best Picture nomination. And Godzilla's a movie. A lot of people I've talked to and a lot of people that saw it this weekend were like, dude, that was the best movie of the year. And my sister's reaction, now, my sister does not love Godzilla as much as I do, obviously. Very few people do. And she enjoys Godzilla in the way that, like, one might enjoy the Macy's Day Thanksgiving Parade. Like, something like that, where it's like, it's something she enjoys, but it's not something that she necessarily looks forward to, or it's like something that she's like, would crawl across broken glass to see. Her reaction to the movie was fascinating because there were parts of this film where she was sobbing. Like, legitimately crying, and then the movie was over, the lights come up, end credits are rolling, she turns to me with tears in her eyes, and she goes, that movie was really good, and she absolutely loved it, and later on we were talking about it, and she was like, Patrick, that's the film of the year? It's the film of the 2020 so far. It was that freaking good, and it deserves the level of praise that it's getting. And, you know, as a Godzilla fan, you know, through most of my life, I've had to defend Godzilla from people because some people look at it and they see it as just cheesy trash. And there's more to Godzilla than campy entertainment, even though that is a big part of it, and a part of Godzilla's history that I absolutely cherish and adore. More on that later when I talk about Godzilla X Kong. But there also, you know, there has been artistry in the Godzilla series, and it has left its mark on cinema in a positive way. And I've said, like, you know, Godzilla was one of the inspirations for Star Wars. It was. Ask George Lucas. He'll tell you that. One of many inspirations, but it was one of them. And it's nice to see a Godzilla movie get like the level of praise that it's getting from people who might not normally be invested in the Godzilla series to the degree that I am. But what -1 does really, really well, number one, it is a horror movie through and through. The way the monster is utilized, the way Godzilla is utilized, he is a sheer, frightening, devastating force from the moment you first see him. And kudos to them, and this is a fanboy thing, but they went back to the Godzillasaurus concept by showing Godzilla pre-mutated and what he was like before he got hit with the nuke. And that was cool to see. I appreciated that. But that whole scene of his introduction is frightening and really well handled. The boat pursuit scene is one of the best Godzilla scenes of all time. And then there's the obvious city rampage scene, which you expect to see in a Godzilla movie. But this one, where normally in a lot of these movies, like, the city rampages are kind of like part of the spectacle, this was horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. And the reason the horror works so well is that you see everything from the point of view of the people who are running away from Godzilla. And it is, and that's the other part of the success of this movie that I'm going to talk about. But the way the monster stuff is handled is very effective, because Godzilla is downright terrifying this time around. So much so that I almost did not want to see him. Because I knew if he showed up, it was going to mean bad news for the characters. And that's effective filmmaking. If you can take a guy who's been watching these films for his entire life and make you not want Godzilla to show up because the characters that you care about are going to be in danger. And that is effective filmmaking for sure. And it's like, man, they did an amazing job here. And the special effects are mostly terrific. There's a few shots where the CGI is a little wonky, but not many, and when they get it right, it is really, really good. Again, the boat scene, Godzilla looked real in that scene. Like, that, if Godzilla actually existed, like, that's what it would look like. And it's so much more terrifying to think of a creature like that chasing a boat and actively hunting people down. Like, Godzilla actively hunts people. He is out for blood this time, and it is so scary and so effective, and creates some major heart palpitations while you're watching the movie. It is amazingly well done. The music is mostly very good, and I don't think the score is as memorable as Shin Godzilla's or Godzilla King of the Monsters, the MonsterVerse film, but it does definitely punctuate those horrific moments very well. And of course, it's always great to have the classic Akira Ifukube Godzilla music, which is a must. You gotta have it. And I always pop for that theme song, and I'll never stop doing that, so it's always appreciated when that's in there. But the original music is very good too. And again, the special effects were really well done for most of the film. Aside from a couple of shots here and there, I think the special effects look terrific. And a lot has been said about the budget for this film, how it was much lower than, say, a Disney film or a Marvel film or a Star Wars film. And it looks just as good, or arguably better than a lot of those. So it makes you wonder, like, is there some kind of, like, money embezzlement scam going on in Hollywood where it's just like, the budgets don't need to be into the 100, 200, 300 million to make a movie that looks good. This movie proves it. And that's the other thing. Like, a movie like this comes along and you're thinking, man, RRR was a major hit for a lot of people, and these are foreign films. And it's like, has Hollywood, I don't know, like, big major studios, have they become like the McDonald's of entertainment? I don't even want to say that, because McDonald's and other fast food chains, they at least satisfy a craving once in a while. It's like major blockbusters these days are just boring and lifeless and uninteresting. And it's like, what's the point of going to see these things when you've got movies like Godzilla -1 and RRR floating around? It's just, it's amazing. So it's like, dude, if you want quality cinema, go to foreign films and go to independent filmmaking, because you're not going to get it from the major studios, at least for the most part. For every Top Gun Maverick, there's like 100 The Marvels, which was a major bust. I didn't see it. I didn't bother with it. But, many people have talked about how the MCU has fallen on hard times. It's like, yeah, it's... I mean, I called it back when WandaVision came out, where it's like, I don't think the MCU's heading into a good direction. Sure enough, history proved me right, but that's enough crapping on the film industry. But I like, Godzilla -1 is a film that should make Hollywood like ashamed of themselves. Like, it's the fact that the movie is as good as it is and I can't think of anything else that even deserves to be nominated for Best Picture, is coming out of Hollywood's camp, is kind of crazy. Like, it shouldn't be that way, but that's where we are right now. But getting back to the positives of Godzilla Minus One, the film is terrific, and a large part of the film's success that a lot of people have talked about is the character-driven, heartfelt story of this makeshift family / group of people that are trying to rebuild their lives after World War II, only to have it destroyed once again by this oncoming threat of Godzilla. And these characters, people have talked about how with kaiju films you don't really care about the characters, you just care about the monsters breaking stuff, and the human characters are superfluous. I have fought against that mindset, and I've disagreed with it. I think some of the best Godzilla movies are the character-driven ones. I could sit here all day and list some of my favorite characters in the Godzilla series, going all the way back to the original 1954 film. Dr. Serizawa is one of my favorite movie characters of all time. And, Mr. Shindo and his reunion with Godzilla in the 1991 film Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, one of the greatest moments in the history of the franchise. Terror of Mechagodzilla, the whole thing with the mad scientist Dr. Mifune and his cyborg daughter Katsura. I think that provides the heart and soul of Terror of Mechagodzilla and makes it one of the best entries. I think the family dynamic in Godzilla 2000 makes that movie better than it would be otherwise. There's plenty of things and plenty of characters where I give examples of the humans can help make a Godzilla movie feel special, and I think this is probably the best example of it, because you really feel for those characters. And I talked about it a little bit earlier, but I ended up loving these characters so much that I did not want Godzilla to show up, because I didn't want them to get hurt. I knew if Godzilla showed up, it's like, they ain't going to make it out, because it's just, this Godzilla, he's out for blood. Like, he's not interested in leaving survivors. So, very, very well done, well-told story, melodramatic, very emotional. My sister was crying at the end of the movie. There was a part in the middle where she started crying. I'm trying not to give away spoilers here, but one moment I will say, there's a moment where Godzilla, when he comes ashore and starts attacking the city, and one of the main characters is on a train, and I was like, oh no, this is bad. Like, this is really bad. And just very effective filmmaking, very effective script, great, I assume great performances. Again, it's foreign cinema, it's in Japanese. I don't know how to qualify good acting when I don't understand the language, but they were convincing to me, and I bought their performances, and that's all that matters. But fully engaging human story where I appreciated and enjoyed and liked all of the characters involved. They all had a personality. They all had a reason for me to root for them or to get attached to them. And a lot of them had big moments in the film that made me go, yes, and brought a tear to the eye even. And it's very rare that a Godzilla movie, even for me, someone who's been watching these movies his entire life, where I can get that emotionally invested in the human story to the degree that I did, to where I was fighting back tears. It was absolutely wonderful, and my biggest compliment to Godzilla Minus One, and again, I've only seen it once. I have seen every Godzilla movie at least 3 times each, and the lower end of the lower end of that is the '98 film. That's the one I've seen the least. Most of them I've seen many, many more than 3 times. This is the first time since I saw the original unedited 1954 film. I saw that when I was 16, and I loved it. It's been one of my top 10 favorite films ever since. This is the first time where I've had to internally debate with myself, was this new Godzilla movie better than the 1954 film? This is an internal debate that I'm having right now. I don't want to give a definitive answer yet. I want to let the movie sit with me and give it some repeat viewings and see what I think. But the fact that my immediate reaction is, oh my god, I think this is better than the 1954 film. It might be better than the 1954 film. That's some heavy praise, because that's something I never expected to see in the Godzilla series. That's like saying a Die Hard sequel is better than the original Die Hard to me, or a Wizard of Oz movie is somehow better than the original Wizard of Oz. It's just something that's impossible, right? You can't do that. A Star Wars movie is better than the original Star Wars trilogy. That'll never happen in my lifetime. I've lived to learn that lesson the hard way. But yeah, Godzilla Minus One was absolutely fantastic, and I'd be hard pressed to find a better movie this year. And again, we're in December, so it's like, good luck finding a better movie. I can't think of one. Honest to God, when it comes to nominating Best Pictures next year at the Academy Awards, I mean, I know they have a Foreign Films Award. Now, it better get nominated for that. I mean, good Lord, what else is there? It should win that at least. I'll even say that. It's like, it better win Best Foreign Film at least. But when it comes to Best Overall Film, it's like, what else are you going to give it to? Like, what else are you... Okay, and again, I want to make this clear. I don't always put stock into what critics say. I definitely don't take the Academy Awards very seriously, because at the end of the day, it's a bunch of rich elitists congratulating themselves, and I just kind of like, you know what, I know what I liked, and no awards you throw at something or deprive of something is going to change my opinion on it. I'm going to like it no matter what, and awards are not going to sway me or change my mind. However, when I am so invested in something like a Godzilla, and to see it getting this level of universal praise that it's getting, and if that somehow ended with it getting at least a nomination for Best Picture, it would feel nice. It would feel nice to, okay, for one fleeting moment, the rest of the world understands what Godzilla is all about. And that's that's something I would really appreciate. So again, it not getting an Academy Award or a nomination is not going to change my opinion on this film at all whatsoever. And it getting one is not going to change my opinion overnight of the Academy. It's like, oh, they're back and they do everything right. No, it's not. But again, for one brief moment, there's an exception to the rule, and I'm on the same wavelength as the Academy, and that would be kind of cool to see. So, yeah, if you have not seen Godzilla -1, I highly recommend it. I don't think you need to be a fan to understand it or appreciate it. It's a complete reboot of the series, and it's an absolutely wonderful, emotional, inspiring, terrific film that I would love and appreciate even if it was not a Godzilla movie. It's one of those rare cases where it's like, this is one of the most universally appealing Godzilla films I have ever seen, if not the most universally appealing Godzilla film I've ever seen. And I can't imagine too many audiences rejecting it. The only thing that would keep people from enjoying it, keep English speakers from enjoying it, is the fact that it's in Japanese. Which was really funny. When I was at the movie theater and my sister and I walk in and they scan our ticket, they was like, the employee was like, okay, look, the film's in Japanese, which leads me to believe that they had gotten complaints either the day before or earlier that week when the movie dropped or something like that, or maybe even earlier that day, I don't know. But I was kind of looking, and I'm like, yeah, I know. It's like, dude, if it was in English, I wouldn't be here. Actually, that's not true. I would see it anyway if it was dubbed into English. But this is one of those movies where, and again, like, dubbing is something that I have a very high tolerance for because I grew up with these movies and that's how I got into these movies. And I think there is some validity to dubbing because that helps get kids into it. Because kids aren't going to read subtitles, but they will understand the language. And I think dubbing is a good bridge to bring children into the things that they love, like a Godzilla, like a DBZ, like any kind of anime that you can think of. I think dubbing is actually very useful in that regard. However, this is one of the rare cases where I really, really feel like it needs to be in its original language to get the full impact. I think if you dub it, you would lose some of that impact. This is one of those rare cases. I think Shin Godzilla was one of those too. I think the original 1954 film, even though I do appreciate the American version, and I have nice things to say about the American version, it's the one I grew up with, I think you lose something translating it into English. I think this is a movie that's made to be seen in its native language, and I think -1 is definitely one of those as well. But that's the only thing I can think of where people would not enjoy, would keep people from wanting to see the film, because everything else about it is absolutely stellar. And again, film of the year, like, what else is there? Please tell me. Unless Dune 2 just absolutely blows this out of the water, I can't think of anything else. But yeah, -1, masterpiece. That's my take on it. But -1 was not the end for the news surrounding Godzilla over the last couple of weeks. There's a lot of stuff out there relating to the King of the Monsters. I want to talk about it all. So, yesterday, the teaser trailer dropped for Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, the latest entry in the MonsterVerse, set for release in 2024. It looks like it's not going to be delayed. This will be the first MonsterVerse film that is not delayed. But what are my thoughts on this trailer? It looks fun. I mean, it looks colorful, it looks fun, and the movie's going to go one of two ways. It's either going to be a fun, ridiculous spectacle, that makes me very happy, or it's going to be a boring, bland CGI Michael Bay Transformers type of movie. It's going to be one of those. So I'm hoping for the former. I'm hoping it's a fun movie. This looks like this is a movie that firmly has its foot planted in peak Showa era silly campy Godzilla, which I am fully in favor of. I've said it many times in the past. I love a serious Godzilla movie. I love -1. I love the original 1954 film, but I also like campy Godzilla too. I'm the same way with Batman. I love and adore the Adam West Batman. I love and adore many of the other versions of Batman that are more serious, like the Burton movies and the Nolan movies and things like that. So I'm open to all interpretations. I think Godzilla, one of the keys to his longevity has been his surprising amount of versatility, where you can be silly and he can be a hero, or he can be super serious and he can be the villain, and none of it feels wrong. I think Godzilla, there's a surprising amount of things you can do with a giant monster that breaks up cities. Like, there's a lot of things you can do with it. And this movie looks like it's firmly planted in that, again, like 70s Showa era, where it's just be wacky, be silly, and just throw everything up against the wall and see what sticks. And you know, we see Godzilla, he's got a pink atomic breath now. I don't know what that is or what the cause of that is. We'll find out. Kong has a new metal gauntlet now. I don't know what that is or what that's about, but we'll have to find out. And we have a new villain. I don't know the name of this villain yet. I'm sure it's probably leaked, because my understanding is the entire plot of this movie leaked already, and WB was trying to scrub it from the internet. But, you know, the thing about the internet is once it's out there, it's kind of like taking piss out of the ocean. You really can't, but I've avoided it because I don't want to be spoiled, and I've learned to avoid spoilers as much as possible. But we also have a Son of Kong in there. Is that a reference to Son of Kong, the often forgotten sequel to the original King Kong film? Excuse me. I don't know what that is. We have a new bad guy who looks like King Louie from the Jungle Book. Don't know his name again, but we'll see what that's all about. I'm fully in favor of having new villains. For as much fun as it is, like in King of the Monsters, it's like, oh my god, we got King Ghidorah back. That was cool. You know, and I love seeing Mechagodzilla and Rodan and Mothra and all the other classics. One of the things that got me into the Godzilla series, I wrote a book on the subject, was Godzilla fighting all of these different monsters. So part of the appeal for me as a kid was like, okay, what wacky thing is he going to fight next? Because, you know, I'd watch, you know, him fight King Ghidorah, and then I'd watch him fight Mechagodzilla, and then I'd watch him fight Hedorah and Gigan and Megalon, and it's like, what's he going to fight next? And I was always on the lookout for the new Godzilla opponent and what he was going to fight. And since the Millennium era, there haven't been a whole lot of new Godzilla opponents. That was one of the reasons I liked the Mutos in the 2014 film. A lot of people kind of were down on the Mutos, saying they were Cloverfield knockoffs. I'm like, I don't know, I like that we got new monsters. I like the Skull Crawlers. I thought they were very cool monsters for Skull Island. I wish Godzilla got to fight those. That would have been neat. I like the War Bats in Godzilla vs. Kong. I wish, you know, they played a bigger role, because that's a really cool monster design. But here we're getting new monsters, a new enemy for Godzilla and Kong to team up against. We get that running shot of them charging in the battle together, which immediately when I saw that, the thing that popped into my head was that song from Saved by the Bell, Friends Forever. I'm like, yeah, Godzilla and Kong are best buddies now. It's great. I love it. You love to see it. My two favorite movie monsters of all time are all palsy-walsies, and they're running in the battle together like it's their day at the playground. It's cool to see. You love it. You love it. So, a lot of unknowns with this movie, but it looks like the complete antithesis to -1, which was a dramatic, dour, dark, scary film. This one looks like it's made for the kids. It's like, hey, let's just go have fun and just be bombastic and wild. And again, I think both are valid, and I'm fully on board with whatever nuttiness they want to throw at us. And hopefully, again, my concern is that it's going to turn into a mindless CGI explosion fest akin to a Michael Bay Transformers film. I don't want that. I want something that the MonsterVerse has been pretty good about for the most part. And a lot of people have pointed out, it's like, man, that 2014 MonsterVerse film looked so grounded, and now it's like we're about 2 steps away from having space wizards just show up in the middle of the movie. It's like, just put Jedi in a Godzilla movie. Why not? I would be fully in favor of that, by the way. But yeah, it does look fun. It was cool to see the trailer, and I'm like, okay, let's see what this got. We got a few months to go, and I'm still kind of riding high off of -1, so it's kind of like, all right, MonsterVerse, ball's in your court. What do you got? And it's great that we've got these two different versions of Godzilla going out there and delivering different things. It's very, very neat to see, and I'm glad to see it. For some other Godzilla news and notes out there, I did, okay, full story. So my wife and my daughter, we've started the tradition of going to the library once a week to check out books, to read to our little baby and everything, and kind of get into the habit of getting her to love reading. I'm fully in favor of it, but it's something that we've done once a week. And so I was looking for books to check out for myself, and sure enough, right on the shelf was Godzilla and Godzilla Raids Again, a translation of the novellas or the novelizations of the first two Godzilla films, written by Shigeru Kayama and translated by Jeffrey Engels. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this was something I had heard about a couple months ago, and I was very interested in checking out because this is a part of Godzilla history that has been kind of kept from American fans, where we have these novellas based on the first two films written by the same guy, Shigeru Kayama, who helped develop, the scripts for the first two films. So to see these kind of novelizations of the first two movies translated into English, I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And it's again, the older I get, more and more of those bricks in the wall that, because when I was a kid, like, there was almost like a wall that was dividing me from all of the other Godzilla material that I was desperately trying to get access to. And over time, that wall has been torn down more and more and more. I mean, -1 came out in Japan less than a month before it got released here in the States, which might be the quickest turnaround in Godzilla history, where a movie got released that quickly in the States. It has to be. I can't think of any other example where it would have been faster. And it's nice to see. It's like all those things that I wanted to get access to, I'm now getting access to, and this is just another great example of it. So checked it out at the library, read it, really enjoyed it. Didn't necessarily add anything that I didn't already know about the movies, although it's worth pointing out that in this novelization, Anguirus has atomic breath. Which I thought was interesting. That's something you don't see in the movie. Only Godzilla has it, and Anguirus has never had this ability. So that was really cool to kind of get that additional detail that it was either intended for or Kayama added it in himself when he wrote the novelization, that Anguirus also has atomic breath. I thought that was interesting. There's a few other changes to the story, like Ogata's role in the original story is heavily, heavily reduced. And another side character, who was a side character in the 1954 film, his role is elevated to basically main character status. So while it was interesting to get his perspective because his family was killed by Godzilla in the original film, and to see him kind of elevated to main character status was interesting, but you also lose kind of that love triangle aspect that made the 1954 film so compelling. So it's like, you're gaining something, but you're kind of losing it too. But, me judging the novellas is not really the point here, reviewing it and how they compare to the original films. I think it's just important that we got a hold of this, and I really am appreciative of Jeffrey Engels for translating the two stories. I think that was really great, and this was a fun thing to read. I was glad to get what my understanding is a very faithful adaptation and translation. I don't have any reason to think that it's not. And it was very interesting to get to read it, and I'm glad that I got to read it. And now it's like, oh man, that was really, really cool. And there's really not a whole lot else to say other than that. It's definitely worth your time if you're a Godzilla fan and you're interested in the first two movies. Definitely check it out. I think it's definitely worth a read. And one last piece of Godzilla news, but one that made me very happy, and it came from Marvel, of all places, where not a whole lot of good news coming out of Marvel these days, but I did read this and it made me very happy. So, in October of 2024, they will be releasing Godzilla King of the Monsters, the Marvel Comics series, in a complete collection. Now, why is this a big deal? When I already own it, they've already released it in a complete collection, so what is there to really gain from another release? Oh yeah, look at this. This is all in black and white. Not this new release. The new release is going to be in color. So yes, I will be buying it again to finally get all of the comics in color. that would be great to see. Do I feel stupid buying the same exact collection of comics again, only this time with one minor change involved? Yes, I do. Don't judge me. I'm a fan. It's how I roll. So, yeah, Marvel is making a great, great release, and I will be picking that up in October of 2024 without a doubt. Now let's end the video on a bit of a sour note. I was so happy talking about Godzilla, and now I'm going to bring myself right back down. And I'm going to talk about something that nobody is talking about. Absolutely, there's not much of a reaction to this trailer that dropped a few weeks ago. I didn't even know that the trailer had dropped until like 2 weeks after it had dropped, and I was shocked because I was like, no one's talking about this. No one is talking about this. And I'm a fan, and no one is talking about this. And that is the trailer to Season 2 of Netflix's Masters of the Universe, now called Masters of the Universe Revolution. Revelations was Season 1, Revolution is Season 2. And like I said, nobody seems to care that this trailer dropped, and I'm just sitting here like, yeah, Netflix, you did this to yourselves. You had the world at your fingertips when they dropped that first trailer for Season 1, and they dropped the ball so freaking hard with how bad that show was and how it met nobody's expectations, and everybody walked away from it ticked off. No one more so than me. I'm, again, diehard He-Man fan. I grew up loving that show. The way I've described it to people and my love of He-Man is it's kind of like in Toy Story 1, Woody is Andy's favorite, then Buzz Lightyear comes along and takes his place. But in Toy Story 3, when he's all grown up and he looks back on it, Woody is the one he has the most fondness for. That is He-Man to me. There were a lot of Buzz Lightyears. Lots of them. Ninja Turtles, Thundercats, Transformers, Power Rangers, Gargoyles. A lot of Buzz Lightyears. But He-Man was number one, and he was there first, and he's the one I look back on with the most fondness. So I was very, very upset with what Netflix offered. With part 1 of Revelations, I did not come back for part 2. I heard some of the spoilers. Got me pissed off, made me glad I skipped it. And, there's been a lot of talk about bad reboots and bad returns, sequels, whatever, of classic IPs and how bad they've been lately, but I'm hard-pressed to find one that ticked me off as much as Masters of the Universe Revelations did. I was absolutely infuriated watching that go down. I have never been angrier watching it. Thundercats Roar was bad, but Thundercats Roar did not lie to me. They advertised that it was shit right from the get-go. This one, I felt like I was lied to, and it was enraging. And I'm shocked that it's getting a Season 2, because I imagine not a lot of people came back for part 2 of Season 1. That was one of their mistakes, where they should have just dropped the entire first season instead of splitting it into 2 parts, because a lot of people did not come back for part 2. I assure you, not a lot of people came back. But looking at this teaser trailer, a couple of things that stick out to me. It's like, okay, the Horde is going to be the main bad guy. Hordak is voiced by Keith David, which I love. That's a great casting choice, because Keith David, love him from Gargoyles. I love him from The Thing. He was great in The Princess and the Frog. He's a terrific voice actor, great voice. I love Keith David. It's like, okay, you got him to play Hordak. That's fantastic. Great. Again, the animation looks outstanding, but the animation looked outstanding the last time, and we got tricked into watching the show because it looked good. Then the writing takes over, and you're like, oh my god, no. Oh, and once again, what do we have here? He-Man is all over the teaser, which, again, we fell for that crap the first time, and I felt played when I actually ended up watching the show. And, Kevin Smith started that nonsense. It's like, oh, He-Man's in the show, and Clownfish TV, oh, they were lying. He-Man's going to be the focus of the show, and then you get to the show, and they killed He-Man in the first episode, and then they killed him again in episode 5. Yes, they brought him back after that, but again, I didn't come back for part 2 because part 1 pissed me off so much. So, I've learned to you got to know when to hold him, and you got to know when to fold him, and that show basically told me to set the poker table on fire, and I was like, nope, I'm out of here. I'm going to get out of here before the fire trucks roll in. Bye, see ya. That was my attitude. So, yeah, the trailer, for the most part, looks promising. The major negative is Skeletor and his new cyborg getup, where he looks like he looks completely ridiculous. The joke I've been making is Go-Go Gadget Havoc Staff, where his Havoc Staff is like attached to his hand, and it looks stupid. Like, that's a terrible design, especially when in the early 90s He-Man toy line, the New Adventures of He-Man toy line, they have kind of a cyborg version of Skeletor for that line. I was like, you could have just adapted that one. I think people would have been okay with it, but hey, whatever. But for the most part, it looks promising. Oh, Granimir's in the trailer. I was like, okay, I like Granimir. He's my favorite guest character in the original show and everything, but I'm not falling for it again. And that's my attitude. I am not falling for this again, because I'm fully expecting you to get rid of He-Man, sideline him for Teela again, possibly She-Ra, because the Horde's involved. And I love She-Ra, but I saw what you did with Teela, and you ruined her, so I have no reason to expect that you write women well at all, because you will make She-Ra completely insufferable. I fully expect that from them at this point, because that's how they handled the characters the first time around, so why should I expect any different? I expect Hordak will probably get bitched out, like Skeletor was all throughout Revelations, so why should I think that they're going to handle Hordak properly? I have no expectations for you, and I have you have no goodwill for me, so I'm not coming back. What I will do, if this show magically gets praised by people that I trust, and the word of mouth is very good, akin to Picard Season 3, which Picard Season 1 and 2, like, I didn't even watch 1 and 2. I watched the first episode, or I turned on the first episode of Picard Season 1. I couldn't even finish it. It was so bad. And from what I heard, I missed nothing. And the word of mouth for Season 3 was so good, and it was so good. And even Red Letter Media was like, yeah, it's pretty good, actually. I was like, okay, maybe I'll give it a look. And sure enough, it actually was pretty good. If Revolutions gets that level of praise, where the word of mouth from people I trust is actually really good, then I'll give it a chance. But, you know, no more of this brand loyalty crap, no more of that. I'm not coming back, and if it's more the same, then I'm definitely not going to watch it. And, like, I don't need to put myself through that again. I don't have the time to put myself through that again. I'm too busy, you know, taking care of my family and watching stuff that I do enjoy. I have no intention on making myself angry or miserable. So I'm talking about it here because nobody else is talking about it, so I might as well give my 2 cents on it. It's just, this show has no hype heading into it. And I don't know, maybe it's possible that they did a reevaluation and decided to do a major course correction heading into this new season, but I'm not counting on it. But again, that's for other people to find out about, and then I will decide what I'm going to do after the initial opinions start rolling in. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video. There will be more wrestling talk next week. I know I was light on the wrestling talk this week. Sorry, but not a whole lot to really talk about, so I figured I'd push it all to next week, and I'll do something then. But for right now, yeah, be sure to follow me on Twitter. The link is in the description. And also be sure to check out Godzilla the Monster Fight Record, which you can buy on Amazon. Volumes 1 and 2 are available for sale. That link is also in the description. And also check out the translation of the novellas for Godzilla and Godzilla Raids Again. That link will also be in the description. I highly recommend checking that out. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching, and I will see you all next week.